Test, test. If I could have your attention, please. We're about to begin our service. I will ask that everyone please take a moment to turn your cell phones to their silent mode before we begin. Conducting our service today is Rabbi Michael Sommer.
The act of kriya, or the act of tearing, is as old as biblical times. Back then, when a loved one died, they would tear their clothing and pour ash upon their head. The act has come forward as a black ribbon that a mourner wears, so all friends and extended family knows to approach with more love and sympathy. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, dayan emet. Blessed are you, Lord our God, judge of truth. Esayenai el harim me'ayin yavo ezri. Esayenai el harim me'ayin yavo ezri. Ezri me'im Adonai. Ose shamayim va'aretz, Ezri me'im Adonai. Ose shamayim va'aretz. The psalmist in those words wrote long ago, I lift my eyes to the mountains. What is the source of my help? My help comes from Adonai, maker of heaven and earth. God will not let your foot give way. Your protector will not slumber. See, the protector of Israel neither slumbers nor sleeps. God is your guardian. God is your protection at your right hand. The sun will not strike you by day, nor the moon by night. God will guard you from all harm. God will guard your soul, your going and coming, now and forever. Our writings teach us that a woman of strength, beauty, and kindness, who can find? She is more precious than fine gems. Her family loves and depends on her, and so they lack nothing. She does good by them, never harm all the days of her life. She perceives that her labor is rewarding. Her candle burns on into the night. She reaches out to those in need and extends her hands to everyone. She is clothed in strength and dignity, and she faces the future cheerfully. She speaks with wisdom. The law of kindness is on her lips. Her children rise up and bless her. Her family entire sing her praises. Many daughters have done valiantly, but you excel them all. Karen Schmall lived the best life she knew how in her amazing 87 years. In her life, Karen added beauty, intelligence, and warmth to this world. There's never enough time with those we love most in the world, but this moment comes for all of us when we must grieve for our loss while remembering all that was good of our loved one. She was an incredible daughter, wife, mother, grandmother, niece, and friend. Daughter of Ben and Ruth of blessed memory, beloved wife of Sam for over 68 and a half years, heading towards her 69th anniversary this upcoming February. Sister of Mickey and his wife, one of her best friends, Joy. mother to Tracy, Lori and her husband David, and Stephen, doting grandmother of Sherry, Drew, Brandon, and Rachel. May you remember Karen for her love and devotion and all the moments she made a difference in your lives. May her memory always be a blessing. A poet wrote, "If you are reading this, then I must be gone. Remember me true, my good days and bad, although I hope our memories hold more smiles than pain. Remember the days filled with laughter, that your tears may hold some sweetness and less sorrow. I never claim perfection, although I'm still convinced I was right a lot. But please forgive me those moments when I couldn't admit I was wrong. Life is built day upon day, where memories accumulate like fallen leaves in autumn, racing. A time to search and a time to give up, a time to keep and a time to throw away, a time to tear and a time to mend, a time to be silent and a time to speak. And now is the time we speak of Karen's incredible life as I call up her brother Mickey to say words about his sister."
To my sister Karen and all her family, her extended family, and all of our friends, it's important to share our condolences with to my sister. I was very fortunate to have a sister who was very adoring, supportive, and in extreme times of my life was loyal and protective. She not only expressed these traits when I was growing up in my own family to her mother and father, but she transferred these traits to her immediate family. Her, there was no one as loyal as Karen, and what was unique about her, most people didn't realize what a smart and insightful person she was. But she never was ego. She had no ego, and she always would be low key, but have something to offer and put her opinion and guidance to her fellow friends and family. This is important for everyone to know. So, of these small things, I think, and I'm very fortunate to have such an experience with a wonderful sister.
I call up grandson Drew to speak of his grandmother.
Without Grandma, so many of us wouldn't be here today. Without Grandma, my mother wouldn't be here today, and so I wouldn't be here. That may seem like a fact of life, but it goes beyond that, because it's the way in which she raised us that is significant. In Yiddish, there is that word mensch, which essentially means gentleman, but it's uniquely Jewish, and Grandma was uniquely Jewish. She cared a lot about her heritage, and she cared that her grandchildren also cared about their heritage. I had many conversations with Grandma about how to proceed forward with life when I thought it had hit a roadblock, or how to overcome futile disputes with friends and family. Throughout the many conversations I had with her, I would typically predict one thing. Her response to life's tribulations would be principled. She was a firm believer of many things, and she was humanitarian in her approach on how to deal with people. It was a sort of humanitarianism that is rare to find today. It was this same compassion and empathy for others that produced a calming effect over anyone who spoke with her. She always seemed to be in a state of peace, which might be why she was whom we would always go to for advice. It was a compassion and empathy that seems vestigial today. Grandma had time on her hands, and she by no means spent that time poorly. She was an incredibly well-educated and in large part self-educated woman. She would constantly keep her mind active by learning and by reading. Her propensity for knowledge and civility is something that I will always admire. Grandma and I bonded over many things, including literature and the fact that we were both Anglophiles. I like to think that it would have comforted her to know that she shares the same Memorial Day as Queen Elizabeth. Brandon, Rachel, and I would always go to dinner with her and Grandpa every Friday when I was in high school. She was as prejudiced of where we went to eat as she was prejudiced of the world around her. That is to say, not prejudiced at all. No matter the weather or time concerns, Grandma would always be happy to see us on Friday for dinner. Which brings me to perhaps the most noticeable thing about Grandma from the point of view of her grandchild. She was always so happy to see her grandchildren, even to the very end. I remember coming to the hospital in December and seeing how tired she was. And although she could not make the same expression that she had been greeting me with for years prior, I could tell that the joy she encompassed was just as vibrant and lively.
I call up Brandon to speak of his grandmother.
Um. Oh. Oh. Yeah, thanks. Um. When I think of my grandmother, um, the main thing I think about is that she had no evil intentions, at all. She never. She never was mean. She never wanted to do anything bad. She never wanted to argue. And she was never petty. And I find that's something maybe all of us could learn from. Um, she always cared about her family. She always wanted to honor them and to do right by them. I remember there was a time in my life um, when many, um, I don't know, many people, uh, I don't know, I was very mean to many people, and they were very mean to me. And I used to call her every day or every 2 days. Um, and I don't have a good memory, but at that time, she was maybe my only friend then. Um, and she always would affirm things, and she would always be loyal and say good things of me, which I would never say of myself, and which I would never hear from other people. But she would always uh, tell me to remember the good, and she said the last thing I remember that she said to me in the hospital, after she had like her first brain seizure or something, and her mind was kind of uh, she like lost. I don't know how to medically say it, but she lost most of her memories. But I remember what she said to me. She was like, no matter the intentions or no matter what you think, you're always trying to help. You're always trying to do good, even when you don't. And she was the kind of person that even um, under great sickness and great suffering would always think good of others, um, even when they didn't think that of themselves. Um, and I, I I don't know how it's I don't know, I can't really repay her, um nor can any of we, but I think God, who sees everything from the beginning until the end, um and knows every heart and knows every thought, um you know I think he sees what good she did, um and it is my prayer um that her soul be in heaven, and that she be in eternal rest and eternal peace. Uh, and also for my family, I hope that they will one day have the same conviction and strength that she had, and the same love that she had for her entire family. Uh, I wish that of my own family, and that they be a little bit more like her um, for the rest of their lives.
Some words from Karen's granddaughter, Sherry. Hi, everyone. I asked Rabbi to read off a letter as I've been struggling the last few days, as Graham has taught us so much about life and has been one of my greatest mentors, not only to me, but all of our grandchildren. She taught all of us how to love each other along with the world around us. For us, she was a teacher of life and our rock. We could always count on her. She was always captivating. You couldn't help but pay attention to what she had to say. We hope that she knows how much she meant to us and how thankful we are. I'd like to start off by saying my grandmother was not our grandma. She was Graham. She was the cool grandma. She would pick me up from day camp or school while my mom was working in her big Avalon, bumping Barry Manilow or oldies with her oversized fur coat on, big chunky gold rings, Saks bag, big sunglasses, and soft suede boots. My Graham was a vibe, and she was bougie in the best way. I remember going to Nordstrom's and then lunch at the Bagel in Old Orchard with Graham. As a kid, of course, ordering matzo ball soup with extra noodles, along with a side of pickles and French fries for us to share. I always hoped that I would grow up to be exactly like her. For me, Graham was my role model, and I looked up to her. That's why every chance I got, I would put the thermometer to the light bulb or come down with a sore throat so that I could go to her house for a sick day. My mom would drop me off at Graham's, and then Graham would take me to Blockbuster to rent as many movies as I wanted, which I wasn't allowed to do at my mom's. Then we would go to Happy Foods to pick out sugary cereal that was also a no-no in my house. I would rest on the couch in the upstairs den, and before I knew it, the day had gone by too quickly because I never wanted to leave. Looking back, it wasn't a sick day, it was really a mental health day because that time with Graham was time to reset. I dreaded school at times, and this gave me a moment to pause. I think Graham knew that. There's no way she didn't. She was smarter than all of us, after all. In the summer, we would come over for dinner on the weekends for a barbecue. In the winter, we would come over for dinner on the weekends for a barbecue because Graham would put on her boots and fur coat and grill still, even with snow on the ground. That's the Graham I like to remember the most. After dinner, we would all take a trip to Baskin-Robbins, where Graham would always tell me to order whatever I wanted, even if it meant 3 toppings and only 20% ice cream for me, and Drew would somehow end up with 6 toppings. My childhood was not the easiest at times, but some of the best memories of my childhood were with my grandparents and at the house on Samoset Trail and spending time with my Graham. Years later, when I struggled as a teenager, she was the first person I would call. She always made it clear that I was not bothering her and that I could call her back whenever I wanted to. Graham was always on our side and would help advocate for her grandchildren. She was the best unlicensed lawyer that I knew. As a picky eater, I would only eat grilled cheese at Graham's house because it was the best. And when I came home from college, as tired as she was, she took out her big heavy pot because she knew how much I loved her matzo ball soup, or would make potato pancakes, no matter how annoying it would be to do all of the dishes or clean up the mess. I hope she knows how much I appreciate her doing that for me, and she always went out of her way for her grandchildren. She would go to the end of the earth for us, but would probably call it chutzklutz. Being the oldest grandkid, I was the first to get what we would call lectures, but she always gave me a new perspective, and even if I didn't always listen right away, it always would eventually soak in. I don't think I would be the person that I am today without her. She taught her grandchildren about compassion, empathy, forgiving others, how to live a healthy life, and how to love each other. Without her pushing us all to be our best selves, I don't know where we would be. Over the last few years as an adult, I realized that the 69-year relationship that Graham and Grandpa Sam had was a love that was so rare, and I was so lucky to be able to grow up with them as my standard for a relationship. I can only aspire to have a love like theirs. No relationship is perfect, but to me, theirs was. Every time I take Grandpa out to breakfast, he would tell me the story of how he proposed after 2 months. On my way out, I told Graham, "Love ya," and she said, "Love ya," right back. This was something she would say to me on the phone as a kid or when I would be on the way out the door to day camp. Graham always made it clear how much she loved us. Today I'm proud to be who I am because of her, and it's true what they say about personality, appearance, temperament, and everything skipping a generation, that myself, along with all of us grandkids, are so lucky. I hope she knows that I wouldn't be who I am today without her, and how much I will miss her. To Graham, love you. I call up Karen's sister-in-law and best friend, Joy.
I met Karen. I met Karen when I was dating her younger brother, Mickey. She, oh, when I was dating her younger brother, Mickey. She didn't tell me that she had a younger brother until we were very serious. And then he said, "Well, by the way, she's much older." So I figured she's 20 years older. She was just a few years older than I. But anyway, that's Mickey. Talking about Mickey, I agree, there was never a sister who was more loyal and loving than Karen to you, Mickey. If somebody would say a negative word about him, a friend, cut off, done. She was a fierce proponent of him, loyal as you could possibly be. Having met her and getting married, she has been the sister that I have always wanted. And we have been closest friends for over 60 years. Although we never lived near one another, she and Stephen, Lori, and later Tracy were an integral part of their cousins' lives. Robin and Johnny experiences growing up, we were shaped by 9034 Samoset, where they grew up, where they lived. I would do my laundry there because it was too difficult in an urban high rise in those days. Plus, you had to go upstairs to the top and it was just too difficult. So the kids, I would go and they would play us at Timber Ridge School outside, and they still cry that they wish that they wanted a house. They wanted to live on Samoset. Karen was an outstanding wife, mother, and a superlative grandmother. She was extremely fortunate to have the most devoted husband, Sam, a friend for almost 69 years. I have in my life, and I'm a therapist, I have never seen a man who has been more devoted when she was sick, he was there in the hospital 7 o'clock every morning, 7 days a week. And when she was at home, he was on duty. And this went on for, I would say, 4 years. It was just, he is just amazing. And I'm so thankful to you, Sam, really. I so appreciate you. Karen, like I say, was an outstanding wife, mother, and grandmother. And you would say that she was a professional. She was incredibly intelligent, selfless, generous, and kind. Nothing was too much for her. Every day she worried about her children and her grandchildren. I got the call, what should I do? What should I say? And then we would spend the time discussing everybody's problem. She was an outstanding neighbor. She would take people places, and she didn't like to drive. Let's just say she wasn't the best driver, but she would do whatever she had to do. She and her beloved best friend in the world, June, and their family shared a lifelong mutual adoration for one another. She adored Jory and Mark. Everybody had to be like Mark. But she loved them dearly and their children. So that's so nice. Um, Karen was a friend to everybody she met. They became part of her life. She was so open and receptive to others. Her outreach was extensive. And truly, she could find something loving and wonderful about every person. She just said hello and you were in. You told her your story, she found out, and you were part of the group. Karen was the unexpected blessing of my life. She cheered for me, she cried with me. As I am known as the rock of our family, the truth be known, Karen was always my rock and my mentor. I shall miss her every day of my life.
Invite Tracy to talk about her mom.
Today is a day I dreaded for years. How could I not continue through life without my mom, my rock, my biggest cheerleader, my proofreader, my everything? My mom was able to help me fix or guide me through many of my problems. Her friends looked to her for advice. They knew she was trustworthy, loyal, and would keep the most secret of secrets. Karen Schmall was an avid book reader. The bigger, the better. She used to read a few books a week before her health started to decline. I remember going as a kid with her to the Skokie Library or the bookmobile, and she would come home with a stack of books. She always encouraged her kids to read. She was intellectual, but at the same time would love to catch up with a People magazine or e-news. She loved chatting with her best friend, June Kessler, and they would chat for hours every day. Thankfully, my dad worked long hours and never knew how much she spent on the phone with her each day. Well, now he knows. She also had an extremely close relationship with my Aunt Joy. They were more like sisters or best friends. They took literary classes for fun and were in a weekly book club. My mom was my biggest fan of my cooking. I tried to think of something she really loved that I cooked or baked, but she loved anything I made. Whether it was when I started doing all the holiday cooking or having something from the grill, she would tell me how delicious it was. She loved how my sister Lori was in charge of elaborate decorations or party themes for all the various occasions. Because I am the baby of the family, I basically grew up as an only child. With my brother Stephen 10 years older and my sister Lori 8 years older, I had the house to myself for most of my childhood while they were at college. My mom took me everywhere, and I was one of the girls when she was with her friends. Her favorite lunch spot with June and Joy was the Chandelier restaurant in Skokie. She would make me order a huge chocolate milkshake because she really wanted it, but she didn't want anyone to know she wanted it. The calories didn't count if she didn't order it. She loved all her grandchildren and wanted to know everything going on in their lives. She had a special relationship with each one of them. As an example, I'll never forget how devoted of a mother she was when Brandon was born early. She held me in every way possible. The first year he was born and when he needed to leave daycare because of his low immune system, she would drive every morning from Skokie to Buffalo Grove to take care of him while I was at work. She would rock him for hours as he slept in her arms. My mom helped me get through a lot of hard times by telling me the phrase, everything is doable when it's temporary. Such an easy thought, but so perfect, and I continue to pass it on to others. I am a lucky girl. I had a mom who adored me and loved me unconditionally. She lifted my spirits whenever I was down. She helped me solve so many hard issues when I needed a solution. Nothing was ever too much for her children. She always put us first and was selfless. I am not sure how I am going to get through each night not calling her for the not calling to tell her the most exciting things about my day or my kid's day, or what the dog did that was so cute, or even the most mundane events that she was excited to hear about.
I thank you all for these few additional memories. Karen Schmall was born in Chicago and grew up in Rogers Park, where she graduated from Senn High School and was so smart she graduated 4 months shy of her 17th birthday. She attended the University of Chicago for over 2 years. When asked why she left, she simply stated, "I don't want a career. I just wanted an education." Sam, you talked about being set up on a blind date with Karen and made it feel as if it was only just yesterday. Of course, as stated already, you asked her to marry you 2 months after your second date. You met when a friend asked you, "How would you like to meet a nice Jewish girl?" And your first thought was, okay, if she was so nice, why wasn't she taken already? After the blind date, you didn't think that it went that well, but your friend asked if you wanted to go on another date with Karen. And you were like, yeah, give it another try. And Karen came down to Champaign for the date. You met her, and right then and there you said, that's the girl for me. The second date, of course, gave you the filet story. You picked her up, and to this day you remember her walking toward you. She was wearing blue and white saddle shoes, white bobby socks, a gray skirt, and a gray cashmere sweater with a pink design. With her beautiful brown hair, you were just smitten. You went out to a restaurant and had a cocktail, and she ordered a filet, which was $5.50 back then, when you only had $10 a month left over after supplies and rent each month on the GI Bill. You got the sirloin for $5, and you spent 2 months of your extra money on that meal. Many years later, you asked your lovely wife, "Why did you order the filet? Why not the chopped steak to show me what a frugal life you would be?" And Karen shot back, "I like fillets. I've always eaten fillets, and I will always eat fillets. And if you don't like that, you can take off." Clearly, you chose wisely, and you two had such an incredibly good marriage and such an eternal love for almost 7 decades. Family was everything to Karen. You were the light of her life. She loved you all so dearly. Sam, you remember that every Friday night, the two of you would take the 3 grandchildren to a restaurant, and Karen would lecture them on minding their parents, being good to their friends, being a nice person, and studying hard so they could get into a good college. It didn't matter whether they were 6, 7, or 8. They should study hard to get into a good college. Every week she would say this, and clearly it worked since you all got into good schools. To have lived a life filled with such love, such devotion, incredible children, grandchildren, and friends is all we can ask for in life. Karen was a mensch. She was a great intelligence, a loving wife, mother, grandmother, and friend. She gave her all to the people who meant the most to her and always tried to give sage advice when asked. In living, we all try to live the best life possible, surrounded by the people who mean the most to us in the world. May you remember Karen in her strength and for all the moments where she made a difference in your life. May her best moments always brighten your day, and may her memory always be a blessing, as she was such a blessing in all of your lives. Merritt Malloy wrote, "When I die, give what's left me to children and old men that wait to die. And if you need to cry, cry for your brother and sister walking the street beside you. When you need me, put your arm around anyone and give them what you need to give me. I want to leave you something, something better than words or sounds. Look for me in the people I've known or loved, and if you cannot give me away, at least let me live in your eyes and not on your mind. You can love me most by letting hands touch hands, by letting bodies touch bodies, and by letting go of children that need to be free. Love doesn't die, people do. So when all that's left of me is love, give me away." We turn together in our pamphlets to read the 23rd Psalm. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He maketh me to lie down in green pastures. He leadeth me beside the still waters. He restoreth my soul. He guideth me in straight paths for his name's sake. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me. Thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. Thou preparest a table before me in the presence of mine enemies. Thou hast anointed my head with oil, my cup runneth over. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I shall dwell in the house of the Lord forever. We rise for El Malay Rachamim, our memorial prayer. El Malay Rachamim, Shochein Bamromim, Chamse Menucha Nechona, Tachat Kanfei Hashchina, Im Kedushim Torim, Kizohara Masirim, Et Nishmat Vered Bat Binyamin Verut, Shalachal Olama, Baal Rachamim Yastereha, V'Seter Kanafav Lolamim, Vitor Bitor HaChayim Et Nishmatam, Adonai Hu Nachlata, V'Tanuach B'Shalom, Al Mishkavav V'Nomar Amen. Compassionate God, eternal Spirit of the universe, grant perfect rest in your sheltering presence to Karen Schmall, who has entered eternity. O God of mercy, let her find refuge in your eternal presence and in the shadow of your wings, and let her soul be bound up in the bond of everlasting life. God is her inheritance. May she rest in peace, and let us say, Amen. We continue in the pamphlets with the recitation of the Mourner's Kaddish. Yitgadal v'yitkadash shemei rabbah, bi'alma divrach erateh v'yamlich malchuteh, v'chayechon v'yomechon v'chaye dechol Beit Yisrael, ba'agala v'zman kari v'maru, Amen. Yehi shmei rabbah mevarach le'olam olamei almaya, yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh, v'yitadar v'yitaleh v'yitalal shemei d'kudusha barichu, le'ela min kol berchata v'shirata, tushbechata v'nechemata, damiram be'alma v'maru, Amen. Yehi shlama rabba min shemaya, v'chaim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael, v'maru, Amen. Oseh shalom b'mromav, hu ya'aseh shalom, aleinu v'al kol Yisrael, v'maru, Amen. May God grant peace to those who mourn and comfort all the bereaved as we say together, Amen. You may be seated. As we continue with the lowering of the casket and the vaulting, we'll place earth from Israel into the grave upon the casket, a piece of our original home. We pray silently until the time to place earth into the grave of the loved one. It's become tradition to place 3 scoopfuls of sand or earth. 1 might be an accident, 2 might be a coincidence, but 3 shows the devotion you come to this mitzvah that can never be repaid. We pray silently.
thank you all for joining us today. After this, the family will be observing Shiva at the Schmall residence at 170 Manchester Drive, Unit 401. And after you're finished, you're welcome to go back to your cars.